Grip socks are great, and now they're even better with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Better fit, moisture wicking, amazing comfort, and all the extra grip you need. Choose from 10 different colors for just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Whenever a new boot comes out, the expectation is always improvement, and these are definitely improved. Ladies and gentlemen, the New Balance Tekela V4 Pro, the brand's latest attempt at a pair of laceless football boots featuring an all-new knitted upper, a reworked laceless system and mid-cut collar, along with brand new sole plate and stud pattern tooling that is particularly unique when compared to just about anything else out there right now. This first edition gold pack colorway retails for $240, but the regular colorways that are now available retail for just $225, making them $50 less expensive than your laceless Adidas alternatives. And I realize that laceless football boots aren't for everybody, but since 2016, when Adidas more or less reintroduced and popularized laceless football boots in the industry, they've remained more or less unchallenged from any major competition. Puma's done a couple, Lotto has a pretty solid laceless boot, but New Balance is one of those brands that is definitely on the come up, and I think what they've done here with the Tekela V4 Pro should definitely be on your radar if you don't want to tie your shoes. We're going to go over all the details of what's new and also focus on a couple features that make these really unique compared to just about anything else currently out there, and also take a look at how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, and if you are interested in a pair of Tekela V4 Pros for yourself, you can pick them up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the first link down below. And really quickly guys, like the video if you enjoy the content, and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2022. So starting with the upper, it's a one-piece knitted construction with no laces, which is not exactly an original design for a pair of laceless football boots. However, this reworked hypo knit material, eliminating that kinetic stitch concept that they had with Tekela V3, which admittedly, the second variation of that boot was actually pretty solid. This time around, the knitted material is thinner, it's more flexible, it's less bulky, and honestly, I think they nailed the shape of these boots. That's something that is so important with any laceless design, and for me, from a fit perspective, this is arguably the best fitting laceless boot on the market, although keep in mind that your experience may vary depending on the specific shape of your feet. Because of the lack of laces, there is no adjustability, so while these work really well for my feet, they might not fit you quite as well. The hypo knit material they've used is definitely different than what you're going to find on the newly released Furon V7 Pro, which is also called hypo knit. This is probably equally as thin, but has a little bit of additional padding with the liner on the inside that gives it a thin feel, but also that little bit of cushion on the ball, which I personally really like the feel of. And then you have a polyurethane top layer with this matte finish on this particular colorway, and then some texturing here through the medial side, kind of in the midfoot area where you're going to be controlling and passing the ball a lot. Then you have more of that texturing on the lateral side, also kind of in the forefoot, midfoot area. The texturing itself is quite significant, but in general, I wouldn't say it provides much in the way of kind of modifying your touch on the ball. There's not a lot of additional grip. You don't really feel the texturing. Overall, it just feels like a really soft sock-like material, which I think is what a lot of people are looking for from a laceless football boot design. Speaking of the laceless design, you can see across the top of the foot, kind of push more to the medial side, so almost in line with that big bone across the top of your foot where you would strike the ball. You're going to find their elasticated knit material as a laceless system, and it's not just a standard knit. You can see there's a little bit of a pattern going on with these thin strips of extra material, very subtly of course, kind of helping to reinforce it and prevent it from stretching too much. Overall, there's plenty of tension here, although it is still going to stretch quite easily. What I will say is because of where they've positioned this particular laceless system, it doesn't seem to stretch and expand upon running around and making cuts quite as much as other laceless football boots that I've tried in the past. So from a lockdown and general stability perspective, I would say these are above average in terms of what's out there in the laceless category, and from a comfort perspective as well, way more comfortable than I would argue any of the current Adidas laceless options. The mid-cut collar is also pretty unique in that you can see it's pretty small in terms of its profile when your feet are not inside of the boots. It's made with a ton of extra tension and obviously has the ability to stretch quite a bit. So when you slide the boots on, you'll find that this collar wraps your ankle more tightly than just about any other mid-cut football boot currently available, and arguably that I've ever tried, which I really like the feel of. It's not to the point where it provides any kind of real ankle support because there's no real structure to this, but having that sensation of this material kind of squeezing your ankle slightly, that little bit of compression, is something that enhances the overall, I guess, security of the football boot. It's not that it makes the lockdown better, but the boots in general feel like they're more connected to your foot because of the tighter fitting collar, which I really like. I also love the fact that it's kind of higher at the front and lower at the back, so it doesn't rub in any way that's uncomfortable, and honestly, I just think looks quite cool. Then at the back, you're gonna find an internal plastic heel counter and then a pretty clever heel liner, and that I can't show it to you because it's very dark in there, but it uses kind of that rough side of Velcro type material that Adidas uses in their X line. However, when you put your foot in, if you rub in this direction, it feels totally smooth, but when you rub upwards, you can feel the roughness. So it's actually actively gripping your socks if your heel tries to lift inside of the football boot, helping with the overall lockdown, but without making the boots feel uncomfortable. So it's really unique in that regard. I think it's really clever from a design perspective. Also plenty of padding, and in general, no real discomfort in the heel, although admittedly, the heel lockdown, because of the laceless design and because of the inevitable stretch you're gonna have from this laceless system, because there are no physical laces locking your foot in place, you're gonna feel that little bit of heel slippage that kind of just comes with the territory of a pair of laceless football boots. So something to be aware of. If you've worn laceless boots in the past and you didn't mind that, I think these are above average in terms of the amount of heel slippage you're actually going to experience. Then the insole, fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. It features that really soft lining on the surface that has that little bit of kind of like a silicone feel to it. Infinigrip is what they call it. This has the first edition branding instead. So it just helps prevent your socks from sliding around on the top of the insole. Otherwise, it's a really thin layer of this black foam that's actually kind of on the flimsy side, but in general, feels decent underfoot. It's just not exceptional in terms of quality. As for the base of the Tekela V4 Pro, I'm really impressed with this redesign. And despite me being very much against the boots by position concept, I think you can wear whatever boots you want in any position. It's a matter of comfort and personal preference at the end of the day. I think there is one feature in particular about this stud pattern that would make the Tekela V4 Pro really well suited for a goalkeeper specific application. Now the sole plate itself is new. It's made from a nylon material and in general has a really flexible feel to it, which I think works well with the soft and flexible feel of this knitted upper. It's always been my opinion that a really stiff sole plate with a laceless design really just amplifies the lack of lockdown because the upper ends up flexing more than the sole plate, and that creates issues when it comes to overall lockdown and heel slippage. So I really like what they've done with the sole plate design in that regard. It's flexible in all the right ways. As far as the FG stud pattern is concerned, you can see in the heel it's fairly the same as what we had before in that it's kind of like these square shaped studs. Normally those would be positioned in the forefoot, but that has been swapped out for perfectly rounded studs in all of the same spaces. That's fairly normal, but if you look along the edges, there are basically these thin bladed studs that are a little bit shorter than the FG ones that kind of border the edges of the sole plate, and you have this on both the lateral and medial side. The last time I saw something like this was on a pair of football boots made by Sport going back, I don't even know at this point, maybe 10, 12, 13 years ago. It was a football boot that was designed specifically for goalkeepers, where the idea with having these studs bordering the very edge of the sole plate is that when you're on the edges of your feet, kind of pushing off to dive, you would have that little bit of extra grip. And honestly, I always thought that was a really good concept. The Sport boots in general didn't look very good. I never tried them myself, so I can't really comment on how they were. But for a goalkeeper to have that extra grip on the very edges of the sole plate, I just think that makes a lot of sense. It feels really good. When it comes to just kind of running around and using them as normal football boots for any other outfield position, I can't say that having these extra bladed studs on the edge really made for that much of a difference. The traction overall is more aggressive than you would normally get from something with just rounded studs, which you have here, 3 on either side and then 1 in the middle. They even have that little toe pick stud, very Mercurial-esque. A lot of brands are doing this now, but for me, for a goalkeeper, for diving, for not having the issue of your shoes ever coming untied while you're still wearing your gloves. I just think this makes a lot of sense, and from a design perspective, it's really unique, performs the part, and that's kind of what I think I'm looking for when it comes to new football boot technology, something that is new, but also effective, and that's exactly what this is. Which brings us to the weight, where I thought it'd be fun to compare the weight of the Tekela V4 Pro to arguably its direct competitor in the Predator Edge Plus, both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the Preds, and you can see that they weigh in at 9.35 ounces, the equivalent of 265 grams, which is not particularly lightweight, although they aren't necessarily trying to be super light either. We'll throw on the Tekelas, and you can see that they weigh in at 7 ounces exactly, the equivalent of 198 grams, under the 200 gram mark, significantly lighter than the Predators, and bordering on speed boot light. This, to me, is super impressive. And again, while the Preds are not trying to be this light, the fact that these are $50 less expensive, fit better, and are way more comfortable, I think says a lot when you also factor in how much lighter they are. And in case you were wondering how the Tekela V4 compares to the model it replaces, they are exactly half an ounce lighter, which is a significant amount of weight, and again, huge improvement considering how much better these football boots feel. On feet, I couldn't be more impressed with the Tekela V4 Pro. If we're comparing this knitted upper to the prime knit upper of the Predator Edge Plus, there is truly no comparison. This feels so much better. It's soft, it's flexible, it's comfortable. It feels like you're wearing a pair of socks with studs attached to the bottom, which is kind of the point of the whole laceless mid-cut knitted football boot concept, and I think they've executed on that extremely well. Despite the extra stretch you have from that laceless system when you do bend your foot, you can see it doesn't expand a ton when your foot bends, and in general, your feet feel really secure. That texture they have in the heel liner, especially when paired up with some grip socks, really makes for solid lockdown in the heel, well above average for laceless boots in general, and I would argue way better than any of the current laceless boots that are on offer from the Adidas brand, especially when you're talking about also having a comfortable feel, because I think the Copa Sense Plus has great lockdown, but they're just not particularly comfortable through the heel area. And I think the feel and shape of this upper, it's hugely improved over what they were doing with the previous generation and just works extremely well. Again, they're laceless, there's no adjustability, so you might have a little bit of a different experience compared to me, but what's also nice about the New Balance brand, just like the Furon, if you do have really wide feet, they do offer this in a wide fit variation. So if you've always wanted laceless boots but have found that they just fit too tight, going for the wide fit option, while I haven't tried them myself, I'm going to assume is going to be the best laceless option for somebody with wider feet. So regardless of foot shape, there should be something for you. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, in a world where I really wanted a pair of laceless football boots this year in 2022, out of all the current options that are available, hands down, the New Balance Tekela V4 Pro is the model I would pick. They fit me the best, I find them the most comfortable, the touch on the ball is fantastic, the sole plate technology I think is unlike anything else, and they're lighter than pretty much all of the competition at a price tag that is significantly less than what you're going to pay for any of the more popular Adidas equivalents. Like I said with the Furon V7 Pro, New Balance is a brand that needs to be taken seriously, and the Tekela V4 Pro is no different. These are fantastic football boots, and honestly, one of the better laceless football boots ever made.